Yo, what is up guys, Dream here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down the freshly announced Path of Exile Scourge teaser and speculating a bit, but more importantly, we'll be going over everything we know so far and whether or not you should be hyped for 3.16. Let's get into it. So, of course, let's break down what we see here in the trailer. There's two primary things we need to cover. The first of which is this strange new vial device here getting socketed into the character panel. So, just from the actual action of it being socketed, we are getting quite a few clues here. So you can see here that it is an item which they're pulling out of the bag, so it's obviously something you do acquire. So this does kind of lend itself to be either a quest reward or it's a consumable of some sorts. But you can see here, once it's placed in, it's solidly locked in there, indicated by these cracks in the user interface. And to me, that means it's locked in until it's either consumed or permanently. So those are the two kinds of things that makes me think. Next up here, we do have the player kind of hovering over here. You can see it highlights, which means in design language, this is clickable. And then they do indeed click it. And that to me means that something should happen. It's a toggleable thing. So they click it and that's that. Something happens. We get cut to black. So for me, what this screams is, well, my speculation here, my prediction is that this is a toggleable Scourge mechanic. So the new league is Scourge League, and my take on this is that you can activate it using this device whenever you want. You can turn it off, on, and you can do content either in Scourge mode or not Scourge mode. And the reason I say this is because some of the things that were discussed on the Path of Exile community podcast with Chris Wilson. So let's dive into those juicy nuggets, shall we? So one of the primary topics that was covered in one of the podcasts was aspirational content. And in that podcast, Chris Wilson mentioned the team was entertaining the idea of introducing Uber content. He mentioned stuff like Uber Blight, Uber Five Ways, Uber Breachstones, basically Uber everything, including maps, Uber Simulacrum, all sorts of stuff like that. Now, if there was a toggleable mode which made things harder, that definitely would lend itself to basically making all content in the game be able to be Uber or more difficult. So Scourge League could very much be highly akin to Delirium League, basically the ability to juice up everything in the game to levels that we haven't seen before. Now, if you use that kind of analogy again, I imagine the Scourge League could be something like a toggleable Delirium Fog or Delirium Mirror. So you can turn it on when you want it and you can turn it off when you don't. Chris Wilson also made a comment on one of the podcasts that the team are, kind of talking about having a juicing method or a way to enhance the difficulty of your maps and loot opportunities without needing player materials or player trades. So one of the biggest issues in the game right now is trade friction, trading for scarabs, trading for alks, chisels, all sorts of stuff like that. If the Scourge mechanic is a toggleable in-game interface option that just allows you to juice up the kind of like the difficulty in the content and also the rewards, that doesn't require any trading and is a fantastic solution in the long run to the players who are asking for this. So fantastic. So my take is Scourge League is this device and it's toggleable on and off and you can choose your difficulty level. We'll see if I'm right. So the other thing to highlight here is this corrupted fusing orb we can see here. So you can see it is very much a fusing orb. There's basically no doubt about it. We've seen other people overlay and do like enhance, look at the fusing orb. It's absolutely a fusing orb. So let's talk about what it might do. So it's obviously a Scourge related fusing orb. So I imagine that when you're engaging with the Scourge mechanic, you'll have a chance to drop, Scourge kind of corrupted currencies. And we can see the fuse. So what do I think this is going to do? So I believe that Scourge-infused currencies are probably going to be some form of risk-reward currency variant. So the traditional fusing orb is about a 1 in 1500 chance to 6-link an item. So I'm guessing that the Scourge-related fusing orb is probably going to be like a 1 in 500 or, 1 in like far more likely, but it's also going to have a chance to just straight up corrupt your item, kind of introducing this risk-reward kind of dynamic. So yes, it does have a much higher odds at giving you what you want, but it also has a reasonable chance at destroying your item. Now, this, in my opinion, is a very, very good dynamic to have in the game. It introduces player choice and introduces player agency. While it is RNG, it's not great, but it is also a decision you can make. So do you want to do traditional fuses, or do you want to risk it, get a way better rate, and fuse with the corrupted fusing orbs? Well, that's now your decision. And depending on what kind of an item you're interacting with, there may be a better choice over the other. So, if you're fusing a unique, you're kind of okay with it getting destroyed. If you're not fusing a unique and you're fusing a rare, which is already complete, well, of course you're not going to use the corrupted one. So it is a new choice that players can make, which is a fantastic thing to put in the game. Now, what's cool about this is I'm pretty much certain that there's no way it's just going to be Scourge fusing orbs. Like, come on. There's absolutely going to be other Scourge variants of currencies in the game. Let's talk about the possibilities of a Scourge Exalted Orb. So right now, there's a meme going on that, Chris Wilson once said, he enjoys the feeling of Exalt slamming his items. Let's be real. No one does that, right? What happens if there is a Scourge Exalted Orb, though, which guarantees or has a chance to make the slam that you're doing like a T1 modifier, for example, but it also has a chance to corrupt the item? Well, now this is suddenly a very big decision that you're making. Do you want to slam the item to guarantee a high tier mod with a chance to destroy it? Well, that's quite a gamble, on the level of a vial orb, but not quite. So it is pretty interesting dynamic. I'm not sure that this is what the direction is that they're going to go with these currencies, but I definitely think it's a reasonable option from a design perspective, and it could be quite interesting. I hope these currencies are incredibly impactful, and they are more powerful than their traditional counterparts, or at least they have more opportunity involved with them, so people are seeking these out, and they do have quite a bit of value. So very, very cool there. So those are the primary things that we see in the Scourge trailer here, and my kind of speculative ideas here. We do also see a new skill gem here, which some people have said looks like some sort of a melee lightning sword skill. That remains to be seen. We'll have to see what that ends up being. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual meat of this, though. What do we already know, and whether you should be hyped or not for the new league? So, of course, I can't tell anyone to be hyped. If you want to be hyped, you can be. But I want to kind of go over whether or not I think this patch is going to be good. So the first thing I want to cover here is indeed the release dates. So we're about 2 weeks out from seeing the Scourge leak, everything it entails, and, getting the full press release. That's going to tell us a lot, and of course we can't build any true hype until we see that, but we'll be playing just a week after that on the 22nd, which is the traditional time period. It seems like they're on track for maintaining their 3-month release, and they did actually push it back for Expedition, but it looks like they're staying on track with Scourge, which is pretty good. So the league isn't far away, but we already know a lot about what's going to be in it. And they've mentioned that they're going to be doing a balanced manifesto announcing a lot of the big systemic changes to the game for 3.16 before the live reveal here. So before October 14th, they're going to be doing a manifesto covering flasks, ailments, defenses, and Ourobots. Those are the things they've mentioned in the community podcast as the main hits for 3.16. It doesn't sound like the new guild stuff will be in there, but we have to see. Maybe they pull that out there as well in the live reveal. But let's talk a little bit about what we know about them so far. So first up on the ticket here, flasks. So we know that we're getting multiple tiers of flask mods. So one thing they've mentioned is that the adrenaline flask mod, for example, right now is fairly lackluster. It's been nerfed. But the new mod tiers for flasks are going to bring it back up to where it was. Flasks rolling is going to be pretty difficult with alterations and augments to get a really, really perfect flask. But once you do get it, it's going to feel pretty damn powerful. So flasks are going to be in a better place. Hopefully they don't nerf any more unique flasks, please. But, let's see what they come up with. It sounds like their intent is to make them a little bit more powerful and make them feel a little bit better in the end game. So I'm looking forward to that. Next up, we have ailments. So they said that they're going to give players more tools to deal with ailments. And they're not going to be necessarily gear related, which is good. It's going to take some of that strain off of getting perfectly itemized gear. Some of the solutions they talked about in the community podcast with ailments was introducing ailment immunity to purities. So if you've got purity fire on, you're ignite immune, for example. They talked about giving some ailment kind of stuff to pantheons, kind of amping that up. So maybe you can get freeze immune from Brine King, for example, and stuff like that. That could be quite strong and quite good for players. Being able to pick a select few ailments and kind kind of knock them off your list without having to basically gear your entire skill tree or character or ascendancy around it. That's going to mean that we don't have to all play Raider, which would be pretty damn good. They've also mentioned that they're going to be making quite heavy adjustments to aura bots because people, there was an outcry. There weren't too many people happy with the state of those. So we are going to be seeing a rework alongside potentially a new few, skills related to supporting and team play, which could be interesting. Very interested to see how that turns out because, a lot of people do like to play in groups, and that is the primary way to do so. If you play solo, though, this doesn't really affect you, which is good. And the next and most important one here is the defensive rework. So this is a big one. We haven't seen a massive defensive rework in Path of Exile in a very long time. I don't think they've really made any meaningful changes to defenses since the energy shield apocalypse all those years ago. So we're going to be seeing some defensive changes. Whether or not that means they're going to be pulling a lot of the more powerful defenses in line and bringing up some of the less desirable ones, I'm not sure. It might be an armor rework. It might be, making more defenses accessible. But ideally, the outcome of this defensive rework would be that you're more encouraged to build a well-rounded character and you feel rewarded for doing so. Because it's no fun playing with Cast on Death Portal and dying, 5 times a map. That's not enjoyable. You should be able to build a defensive character and then do content without fear of, getting one-shot constantly, and you should feel like it's worth it. Right now, defenses offer too little, in my opinion, for what, you get out of them, and I'd definitely like to see that defensive rework make stuff more accessible, more understandable, and more logical. Armor doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. It'd be good to see that reworked. So yeah, those are the main big systemic changes we're going to find out about before October 14th, so stay tuned for that. So of course, we do have a few other things here. We've got the Uber content, which we mentioned earlier. They have said that they wanted to introduce new aspirational content and that should be coming in 3.16. So that's very, very exciting. And alongside that, we do also have the big Atlas consolidation. If you don't know about that, I did a video on it. Go check it out. It's going to be a massive deal when it happens. And it's definitely fair to say that this league isn't going to play like the last in terms of Atlas and progression and all of the metagaming around that. But you can see here we already have some of the maps shown off. Part of this change is that the full map pool will no longer be available. There'll only be 100 maps on the Atlas, and you can see 3 of those are already revealed. We've got Reef, Pit, and Bog. They're all reasonable maps. None of them are awful, so that's pretty good to see. Hopefully we see that trend continue. But they have mentioned that we'll see the full Atlas reveal in the trailer. Sorry, in the live reveal here. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking for here. So should you be hyped? Well, I think that as long as they deliver on everything they've talked about here, and the manifesto, the Balance Manifesto, isn't a flop, and it does have good and meaningful changes which aren't nerfs, and then the Scourge League, looks reasonably interesting. It's got some meat on the bone, and it does deliver on what was talked about in the community podcasts. And of course, there's a little bit of crafting juice in there with the new currencies. I think it's fair to say that Scourge League has the potential to be a hit. And it should be reasonable to start the hype train on October 4th. I think it's a little bit early. Let's see what they've got cooked up, but I am, cautiously optimistic. Obviously, a lot of people got burnt by 3.14 and 3.15, but I think that they might have set it straight, and we could be in for quite a treat. If it's anything like Delirium and what they added to the game with that, I think it could be very exciting indeed. I'm very, very, very happy that they've gone in a new direction with rewards, with these new corrupted currencies. That is a massively positive sign. I'm personally quietly, tentatively hyped. Hopefully you guys are too. Stay tuned to the channel for more PoE and plenty of Scourge content coming up. And until then, I'll see ya.